Let's start with a discussion about the importance of physical media, and this all came about because over the last week, Sony announced to some of their users, their PlayStation users, that if you bought specific shows on the PlayStation, you were going to be losing access to them in your library. Now, I want to be clear, this is not because Sony or PlayStation is evil. This is because Warner Brothers, the owner of the Discovery Channel, is deleting those shows. And because Warner Brothers is deleting those shows, it is kind of as though Sony and then in turn you are losing rights to access that content. And it seems as though a lot of people are shocked by this. To a lot of people, this seems new. Maybe I'm crazy, but this has been going on for years. This has been occurring for years in iTunes, in Apple, in Vudu, in any kind of online service where you buy a digital copy of a movie, of a show, of an album. This is nothing new. Now, I'm not excusing this. I think this is crappy behavior. I think this sucks. But I think us as consumers need to understand that when we buy a digital copy, when we own a digital copy, we do not own that. When we fork over our hard-earned money on a digital copy, all that is a long-term rental until that distributor loses rights, which could happen at any point in time. You could buy a series, and then 2 weeks later they lose access to it, and you threw your money down the drain. Maybe you could argue for a refund, but I've never had luck with that. I did speak to somebody at Apple, and they said if you keep track of what you bought and then you lose access and then you contact them and argue with them, they will give you a refund. I haven't gone to that trouble. But I think it's important for us as consumers to understand what we're actually paying for when we get that digital copy, a long-term rental. Now, as I mentioned, this isn't anything new. There seems to be this constant battle over rights, over licensing, over distribution, over all of that. And the first time this came on my radar is the original Dawn of the Dead. I bought the original Dawn of the Dead on Blu-ray, and when I was moving, I was stupid. I threw away all of my boxes, all of the packaging, all of the inserts. It was a stupid decision. And I went to repurchase Dawn of the Dead on Blu-ray. I still had the disc, but I really wanted the case as well, only to find the Blu-ray was going for $125. The reason for that is the physical movie was out of print because the owner of the rights wanted too much money for it and nobody was willing to pay for it, so no new copies were printed. So the existing copies skyrocketed in value. Then if you went onto streaming services, it wasn't available there. Then if you went to buy a digital copy, it wasn't available there. So you were unable to find any way to watch the original Dawn of the Dead. This may have been resolved by now because I know they released a 4K and a Blu-ray in the UK, but I think that was through Second Film Studio, something like that, but I don't think they ever re-released it in the US. Another instance where I was happy to have the physical media is the TV show Community, one of my all-time favorites. They have an episode which was deemed too culturally insensitive, too offensive, so it was pulled from every single streaming service. I don't think they pulled the episode if you have purchased the digital copy, but if you were watching on streaming, it was no longer available, so I am happy to have the physical copy. So that is another reason why you may want to have physical media, because you may lose the rights to stream it, or it may be deemed unacceptable and pulled. It is also purely coincidence that I heard this just this last week, but one of my family members had purchased 5 seasons of a TV show on a streaming service or an online retailer. They went to rewatch those, and 4 of the 5 seasons had disappeared. They lost access to 4 of the 5 seasons that they purchased. So this is nothing new. It sucks for the consumer. But it's something that we need to understand and change our consumption habits and our purchasing habits because it's unacceptable. If you're buying something, you should own it. But if you're buying a digital copy, you are just long-term renting it until they lose the rights and then they take it away from you. The last example that I have is the Mythbusters, which is perfectly fitting because this is a Discovery Channel show which was just pulled from PlayStation. I was rewatching the Mythbusters and I could not find, I think it was season 4 or season 5 on iTunes. It was unavailable. So what I did, I went onto eBay, I found a full series run of Mythbusters on DVD, and I bought it for 70 or 80 bucks. And now I have access to every single episode of this show forever in perpetuity as long as they don't explode and my DVD player does not cease working. And I imagine now the physical copy of Mythbusters is going to go up in price because you don't have access to the digital copy anymore, even if you paid for it. That is poppycock. I should check my iTunes because I purchased a number of seasons of Mythbusters, and I wonder if I will now lose access to them. Interesting. It doesn't matter now because I have the physical copy, but that'll be a kick in the pants because those were HD while the DVD is 480p, and that stinks. This entire discussion up until now has solely been focused on access to content, but I also think there are additional benefits to having physical media. Number one for me is the tactile nature of it. I know some people may think that's hokey, that's cheesy, but I like having a physical item in my hand. I like being able to slide out the VHS tape and clank it into the VCR. I like having the liner notes for the DVDs so I can read them and read a little bit about each of the episodes if it is a good box set. I like that. If you get a vinyl or you get a CD, you also get all of the information. Maybe you'll get a bit of a lyric sheet in there. That is also an added benefit. If you like the artwork that comes along with the movie or the album, you get a higher quality and physical version of that. And my favorite reason for physical media, the intentionality of it. It seems a lot more intentional to say, I'm going to put in Monty Python and the Holy Grail into my VHS player, into my VCR, and watch that, as opposed to going on to iTunes or Netflix or whatever and scrolling for 30 minutes only to realize, oh, I don't want to watch any of this, and now 30 minutes are gone. I already made the decision to watch Monty Python, and I'm 30 minutes in, and I'm having a blast. I just put in the new Blink-182 album into my CD player, and I'm listening to it, and I'm enjoying it, as opposed to, I don't like this song, I'm just going to skip to another song by this other random artist. It forces you to enjoy that piece of content, that piece of art, a lot more in my experience, in my opinion. So that is why I think physical media is so important. Not only do we risk losing access to something that we care about and that we paid for by purchasing digital copies, but we also lose that tactile relationship that we have with the art. There you go. That is my discussion. Those are my thoughts on the importance of physical media. If you purchased a digital copy and you're losing access, I am so sorry to hear that. That absolutely sucks, especially a full season of a TV show. That can run you 20 to 30 bucks. And they're just saying, yeah, here's a middle finger, heck off, deal with it. That's stupid. We shouldn't be having to deal with that, and that is why if I want a piece of media, I will go for the physical copy if it's available.